John and Steve from Midlands Metalheads, and we're on site at HRH Prog 7 for the very last time at Hafanny Moor Holiday Park. And today we're speaking with GoldRay, who very kindly joined us on the city.
Would you like to say hello, introduce yourself, names, and what you do within GoldRay?
She's Leah and she sings.
And he's coming house and he's a shit hot guitarist.
Three bars.
I love that girl.
Can't get any clearer on that
girl. I love that girl.
And how long have you been together as a band?
Well, we've actually been together as a relationship for 11 years, actually, which is...
So as a band, it wasn't long after that,
It wasn't. Well, we started making music not that long ago. Even at first, when we got together, we both realised we did music, but we thought, we can't do music together. We're in a relationship. That just will never work. So for the first 6 months to a year, we never did anything. We just, it's just
looked
nice. Looked at each other, and obviously we were,
I'm not going to have a long to your guitar.
It was Christmas, and a little bit pissed, and ran at your family's house, and we just had a jam, just like slightly pissed jam. And everyone said, "When did you write that?" And it was like, "Oh, we never wrote that," and it kind of worked. So we thought maybe we should do something together. And from that point on, we just started writing together. And I was still doing, Reef got back together again, and I was doing that at the time. And she was working with other producers, doing sessions as a singer, and we were doing all sorts of other stuff. But in our creative time that we had free, we were like writing songs together. So that's how we kind of slowly, over like a 10-year period, built GoldRay as a writing partnership. And then, that's what it sort of formed from there.
We tried a couple of others. We called ourselves something else. We had a couple of other bands beforehand. Well, we were trying sort of different. We didn't quite know what we were at first, did we? We were sort of playing all sorts of stuff and then just boom, we realised that we liked the kind of psychedelic edge to stuff.
Proggy,
and then
hard
GoldRay
rock,
came.
Psychedelic, proggy hard rock, I suppose, is the way we sort of...
And it was only really when GoldRay was born that we sort of thought, let's actually really...
Let's have it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you've both got similar influences, musically.
We share like half and half. Like we do have a lot of in our rock, like the area. I mean, we like all sorts of music. I do listen to a lot of rock, but I also listen to a lot of, kind of acoustic stuff as well. And I like some electronic stuff. But as far as rock goes, we did grow up on a similar sort of thing.
I was sort of probably more into Fleetwood Mac and.
I love Fleetwood Mac.
Kate Bush and Patti Smith and
I was probably more into Black Sabbath
Susie
and Led Zeppelin.
I love Led Zeppelin and AC/DC, and we're both massive AC/DC fans as well, so we just whack AC/DC up.
Have you checked out Greta Van Fleet yet?
No.
No.
Is it?
Have you not heard?
No, I have.
I think you guys are totally.
Yeah. A couple of people have mentioned that to us.
Yeah. They're being heralded as the new Led Zeppelin, basically. Yeah. Went to see them on Wednesday night. Packed, good. Absolutely packed.
Are they English?
American.
I have heard them, yes. Yeah, I did. I checked them out. Yeah.
We've been so busy this year to kind of get into bands, trying to get our new album.
I heard one thing. Someone played me something, so yeah, I have heard them. How were they like?
And they've got a very similar vibe to yourselves.
Have they?
Well.
Have they got female vocals?
No, but very similar vibe, the way they present themselves,
Let's check them out.
I'm thinking it's they filled a gap.
Yes.
There's not many bands. I mean, I just think that it's such a prestigious gap to try and fill, isn't it?
Big shoes.
Yeah, big shoes, absolutely. And it's because it's a powerful medium, that form of rock. I think it is, because it's the kind of rock that can take over in a good way. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's something that hasn't happened for a while, and I think it's about time it does again, to be honest.
And it's probably that band, along with the other band you mentioned, Sabbath, that is the reason that the station exists.
And do you know those two bands? Absolutely, totally agree.
I think there's not a lot of bands. There are quite a lot of sort of heavy, hard rock bands putting on shows, but there's not there is a gap in the market for a sort of Led Zeppelin performance element. with a sort of feminine touch to it. I mean, the bands in the 70s were quite feminine. Led Zeppelin was quite feminine.
Yeah.
David Bowie.
Ozzy back in early Sabbath was quite.
Ozzy was
quite
feminine. There was a
Do
feminine
you know what I mean?
element.
There was.
In their sort of showmanship.
Well, you check the way they present themselves, you'll see totally what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, they're very
Awesome.
60s, 70s in the way they present themselves.
Oh,
It's almost manufactured.
Uh,
Do you know what I mean?
That's it.
It's
They know that they know what they're doing. But if they make good music,
yeah,
But
it's
I'll
good
let them off
music,
of it.
isn't
the
it?
Abbott of rock music.
Oh,
Yeah,
Abbott
I
of
see,
rock
yeah,
music.
well, great.
Wow.
Yeah.
And going back to your name, GoldRay,
I love it.
it suits you. You know, it just don't make sense. So.
Ah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Well, I mean, it's fun. Yeah, it's fun to entertain as well. It's fun to dress up. It makes the whole musical experience much more magical rather than if you're just standing there in jeans and t-shirt.
Yeah.
The feeling of the song is
Yeah.
massively emphasised when you're dressed up as well. I mean, you'll notice it if you suddenly change into. I mean, as you know, you guys will dress up and if you're just in sort of normal clothes and then you dress up for a party or whatever, it brings on another persona. Ooh, something else happens, and it's magical. And I think for thousands of years, there's been a sort of ritual where people do dress up for certain events and certain things. There's a reason that's there.
It's true.
You know, and I think recently it's sort of gone the other way. If you look at the 70s and the 80s, people were really dressing up, and then suddenly it went quite boring for
Very
a
boring.
while.
Decade, wasn't
But
it?
now
Yeah.
sequins are really in for guys at
Yeah.
festivals now. Loads of guys are wearing
Yeah.
sequins and
Yeah.
glitter, and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
So it's fun for guys again now, which is good.
Well, that couple I was telling you about who specifically came to check you guys out, they dress, very hippie, very flamboyant. And last year there was a festival on near us, and it was a 60s theme. So they were obviously asking people to come, dressed in that particular style, and they stayed with us overnight.
Oh.
And they came in the clothes they normally wear,
Yeah.
and
So
they went
that's
up there, and people came up saying, "Great outfit!
I
love it. This is how we always dress."
Yeah.
But
Amazing.
it just,
That's it.
it
Why
just so
not?
suits the way they are.
Why
It
not? You
suits their
feel so
personality.
different.
Self-expression. There should be. I mean, I think it's like there's all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, doesn't it? I think that there should be time for self-expression in people's lives. People should be individual. It's a middle finger to the uniformity of industrialised bullshit out there.
Wow.
The problem is
That's very
people are
deep.
working too hard.
People work
So
too much.
people don't have time for
Family,
recreational
friends.
dressing up,
Yeah,
being
yeah.
artistic.
Yeah.
More in the ancient. If you go into ancient civilizations, people dressed up more and they worked less.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of sort of elaborate expression of who they were. Time was art rather than time is money now.
Yeah.
So we're all on a treadmill. So people are knackered when you stop working. The last thing you want to do is go and dress
Well, I
up
think
and have to go
the
and do
Brits,
something.
they say
does
they were
take
the
effort.
hardest working people in
Yeah.
Europe.
It's crazy.
We went to Italy once, my wife and I, and on the Sunday night, even though there's a lot of rough areas and poverty areas, the whole town come out in their finery.
Oh,
Oh,
fantastic.
And everybody's walking
That's
about,
it,
they look
exactly.
beautiful.
Isn't that
Yeah.
nice?
They look
thing?
absolutely
I
beautiful.
know. There's a culture in Tibet, on the border of Tibet and China, and we were watching it the other day. I couldn't believe it. They actually go to work fully dressed up every single day. It was
In the
mental,
fields,
wasn't it?
it's
And
good
really
times,
clean
yeah.
clothes as well.
Yeah.
They had white in their clothes, the women, bright colours, and like as if they were going to a party. And then they just went out into the fields in these clothes. I was like, wow. And they see it as a very important thing to, mind you, I really like just scraping my hair back and putting it in every now and again as well. You need
Exactly.
to just relax.
And we
It's
can-
a balance, isn't it?
And we
of the
can talk.
two?
We've been working 12-hour days on our
Yeah.
album recently, so we can't talk. We all work hard. I mean, if you're working at something you love, that's good. That
It's
is-
a balance,
we're
isn't
blessed
it?
if
You
you
do have
that.
to suddenly go, well, we've been working hard. It's time to dress up. Time to
Yeah.
have some
Right,
fun.
time to have some fun.
Yeah. You've got to have fun in life as well.
And at
Sure,
the risk of
sure.
going
Fun is essential.
all political, I think for a lot of years in this country, it's been about austerity. It's been
Yeah.
where art hasn't got a value.
No,
So,
and they're
I
even cutting
agree.
art.
yeah.
They've
And
cut
it's been
art in the
suppressed.
schools.
So
and
they're
that-
just ready to explode.
It
again.
really
yeah,
is.
you suppress something, that means that it actually has the opposite effect. It gives people more of a desire. If you take people's freedom and their voice away a little bit,
It's going to have the opposite.
it'll have
When we
hopefully an opposite effect.
we feel a bit gutted in a way because the UK is so known for our quality music, and you know, we're just not supporting our music.
No,
there is no support for music and arts at the moment. They're cutting it in
true.
schools. The kids are not. There's not as many bands because they can't afford to rehearse because rehearsals are so expensive.
There's schools without an art teacher and
I
a
know.
music
It's
teacher.
terrible.
It really breaks
is.
my heart that there's that. I mean,
know.
no,
It's
it
just-
really gets me. Really gets me. That does.
It does make you wonder what the future will bring.
I know,
I know.
because the Led Zeppelins and all of those lot, you know, they were created really. But a lot of them, I mean, so some of them were, you know, were trust fund kids and whatever. But there was a lot of them
Not
on
many.
the dole that had this creative time to actually create the music and do whatever. And you think about it, they didn't rip the system off. They ended up with all
They
the
paid more
taxes they paid
taxes.
back into the country.
Yeah.
And that short time that they actually had that space to create the band.
Yeah.
Get out there and do it. There should be sort of grants and funding and
People
available
shouldn't-
time for people to take time
I
off
agree.
work
People
to invest that time
People
into
shouldn't
the
have
music.
people shouldn't have to be slaving away all the time and have absolutely no creative time or time for themselves or their families at all. Anyway, in my in a world that's
No.
fair, at the risk of sounding political again.
Yeah.
But the trouble
I think
is
we
that's
women
now,
agree on a few things.
that's now affecting music, you know. So it's a tricky one,
Yeah.
you know. But there are other countries like say Sweden who are getting help from the government. The bands can get funding
They got
for
strong.
recording. There's a great flourishing
Rock
music
scene out
industry,
there.
rock scene happening out there because the bands can actually get funding for recording, rehearsals, and all
South
sorts.
America's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very supportive.
so come on UK.
Exactly, it is probably one. I'm not
Sort it
that.
out.
Not that I want to be flag waving in any way, but the only thing that you could wave your flag about over the last 40, 50 years in this country is our music.
We're
Everyone
so
looks
proud
at
of our
this
music.
country. I mean, you look at it: Beatles, Stones, Who, Pink Floyd, Zeppelin, Black
Oh, yeah,
Sabbath.
the
The list
list.
goes
So why are
on.
we not
The list
supporting
goes
that?
on.
That's why no new bands have come. That people are saying, "Oh God, there's no more Zeppelins, no more." Well, you know, no one can afford to do it.
They're killing
How are the
it.
kids supposed to do it? How?
Yeah.
I
Create
think
the
it's acting like
facilities
an
then.
underground movement.
Yeah.
Well, it is
Because-
underground.
Well,
Because
it-
I think
it was
people,
first time,
you know, you're not
yeah.
going to suppress that.
No,
Yeah.
you
Somebody's
can't
got that
suppress
within
it.
them.
Exactly.
It will
Well,
come
Well,
out,
it's with
yeah.
us. It's hard to run a band. It's hard to. It takes a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort. So it's all consuming. You can't easily have a day job.
But do you think
And
with
put everything into-
modern technology that it's made it easier now for people to
In
express?
It's a
some ways,
double-edged sword.
But then in
Yeah.
other ways, it's
Yeah.
consumed more of their life in another way.
Absolutely.
In another, it's true. The thing about that, it does give you the angle that you can get out to people without having to go through corporate bullshit, if you know what I mean. You can have a more of a direct thing. That's the positive side. But the negative side is that to feed that is quite a hard job. I mean, John Lennon didn't have to sit down and figure out what he was going to tweet or figure out like. I mean, there's quite a lot has to go into the content for social media. We often find ourselves, I'm a pre-social media era
You didn't have to
person,
do any of that. Really.
you know, and we didn't. It's an extra burden in some respects.
Yeah.
Noel
But it's
Gallagher said
positive.
if Oasis came out now and Primal Scream, they wouldn't have made it because of the whole social media thing with what you have to do. That's a full-time job in itself. If you want to promote yourself purely through social media and not go through record labels and everything, it's not easy.
And the
And it's
algorithm
expensive,
changes
it's
every
challenging
month,
in
doesn't
terms
it, in terms of what works and what doesn't work.
Sorry?
The algorithms change every
Yeah.
month in terms of what
Yes.
works, what gets
I know.
seen, what doesn't get seen.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
However, you know, I have a very positive outlook on it all because the magical music will always get through, as you say.
Absolutely. If it's in them, like you said,
Yeah.
and if it's in you, you'll do it.
You'll find
Yeah.
a way of doing
That's
it.
You've
the
got to
one.
just not take no for an
That's
answer.
it,
Just
yeah.
keep going,
Yeah.
keep going. If you
Yeah.
know you've got it, if
In
you
a way, if
believe
you
in a
think about it,
band.
it's a bit like the prohibition back
Yes.
in the 30s.
Yeah,
It didn't stop people from making
And drinking, did it? No.
yeah.
It actually
All it
went
did-
up.
All it did, it just drove it underground.
Maybe
Exactly.
this
We are in the
actually gonna
musical
help.
prohibition now.
Oh, yeah.
There kind of
There we
is a little
That's
bit.
a
There's a kind of it's a weird one because there used to be an area in the music industry where there was room for the renegade, there was room for rock and roll, there was room because it's exciting, but it seems so bland now. The actual mainstream music industry, that that avenue has now been closed down for stuff that isn't completely within the corporate domain. Do you know what I mean? It's almost impossible now. They've shut the door on people who were going to probably put the middle finger up to the system, which is a very sad thing, you know, because that's what it's really all about, isn't it? It's, you know,
that's the fun of music.
So. Yeah,
Come on.
it is.
Time for a rebellion.
It
Yeah,
is.
absolutely.
It is.
Yeah.
Musical rebellion.
A musical rebellion, yeah, it can come in a very positive way as well.
So, I mean, you're here today, you're playing a prog festival, but I imagine you have a wider appeal about it. I can imagine that you go down well on the wider festival circuit. Is that something that you're finding
Yeah, we're quite a festival band. We love festivals, and last year we played the Hard Rock Hell.
Just the hard rock one.
The Hard Rock one, and we was wow, and it fitted in really well. So I think, you know, a band like us, we have a hard edge and we have a softer edge. We kind of a bit of everything really. So it's I think people's tastes are spreading out now. People are kind of, you know, it's not so niche, the rock scene. The psychedelia is now mixing into the harder rock and the
prog and rock,
everything.
prog and metal.
That
and
is
prog
exciting.
And rock.
That's
you know what I
spreading
mean?
out.
Yeah.
That's, you know, it's a lot of prog. I mean, you could even look at Muse and say that they're a prog band in some respects. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you could, you know, there's a lot of sort of more mainstream rock bands that have a very proggy edge these days, which is great. It makes it more interesting, makes the arrangements more interesting, makes the musicianship more interesting, you know. So
I must admit, as a DJ, the one thing I struggle with is because I get bombarded with albums from every which way but loose.
I can imagine.
And the biggest problem I have is picking a track that represents that band or that album.
Yeah,
you know, what track can I play that will, you know, reach somebody and give them an insight into what that band are about.
Yeah.
And if you've got a band that sort of literally changes every track, you know, I mean, I've recently, I doubt very much you've heard. If you have, I'm very impressed. There's a guy called Fayan Zek, and he's brought out a double album. It took 10 years to make, and it's a double album, 18 tracks per side, and every single track is different.
Yeah.
Whoa!
I could play you track one, you go, don't like that. I play you track two, I love that.
Yeah.
Track three, I don't like that.
Yeah.
It's that diverse.
In a way,
and to put across that guy's music is very difficult.
It would be almost easier if he had broken it up into sort of 4 albums, because you can deal with that in and out.
Yeah.
So our first album's a little bit like that, in some ways varied. You know,
it does have variety. Sort of we didn't want to fit. We sort of rebelled against the fact. I mean, I was signed to a major with my old band Reef, and it was I knew that the creative pull between what the A&R were doing at Sony with us compared to what we were doing on our first album and our second album, and as things became more successful, how much more pressure would come to bear on pretty much write the single and then write another 7 or 8 that are just like that, and so it was the opposite. So it forced people. It became quite boring, But there is a middle ground, I think, between what you've just said and that. I think our new album is probably more.
Because when I did a preview show last week, and I did, is it Soul Child?
Soul Child,
yeah. I did Soul Child.
Oh, great.
Taking what Speech just said, and I'm putting you right on the spot here in terms of like one track, selling it to so the people are choose a GoldRay track that you think perhaps sums up what you're aiming to do. And then
I think
everybody say Soul Child, I'll kiss your feet.
I was just about to say, I was going to say you chose one that probably
from the first album.
I'd say Soul Child because it's got.
It's a hard
it's got.
I think it's got a nice mix.
It has.
It's
kind of
psychedelia, rock,
and prog. It is. It's all of that together in one song.
But the new album,
so you did well.
Quite different. The new album's a bit different to the first album. So it's not so in the sort of genres. It's not so similar to Soul Child, is it?
No,
really?
I don't know. But it's a natural progression. But I suppose
it's still GoldRay.
Cosmic rock. It is, but we've actually we've got 3 songs that are under 4 minutes, which we've never done before.
So we've got more singles.
We've got more songs that can go on the radio, maybe. Who knows?
Wow.
Without trying, we didn't deliberately write them as let's write them. I wouldn't say it's like totally commercial, but there are elements which are kind of, you can tap your foot to.
So we've just been working really hard getting that done this year, and we're nearly finished now. Yeah, so...
Have you got a title for that one yet?
Yeah, I think it's going to be called Feel the Change.
Oh, wow. I guess next year is that going to come out?
Yeah,
Feel
spring.
the change, guys.
Spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got our first batch of mixing the first half next week. We're flying out to Sweden to work with Pedro Ferreira in his new studio, Spin Road Studios. He did The Darkness. He used to work over here, we was living in London, and he did our first album.
Mixed it.
So, but
it's a great
we work really well together, so we just want to get him to do the next album, so we're going to go over to join him over there. So we're getting all the singles done in this first batch, so we can start work on the videos.
Start making videos then.
And then we're mixing the second lot in the first week of January. So then it'll be done.
Wow.
So sometime in the spring.
Wow. Yeah, you heard it here first, guys. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for
Time
having
out
us.
of your day.
Always
No
a
worries.
pleasure.
Are you staying till the rest? Are you staying the night?
Do you know what? I think we're going to miss some of Hawkwind. I'm a bit gutted.
We
I'm trying
wanted
to
to
persuade
come
everybody
and
to
stay.
stay, but people have to get back, when you're
We've got to
travelling
cross a mountain range.
Yeah, in the
And
fog.
and then get back. So yeah, unfortunately we got to leave a little bit early.
We're
So
going
I
to have a
think
couple of beers, get some food down
Get
us,
some
watch
food.
what we can.
Real.
watch what
and,
we can and then bugger off.
Yeah.
That's been great.
We'll
Evan.
see you at the next
I
festival.
wish
Great
you
to
all the
see
best
you
with the
guys.
new album.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We'll make sure you get it. Get
Yeah,
finished
we'll-
with it soon.
Well, yeah.
In the early days.
You know Lauren, so
Yeah.
badger Lauren and she'll send you a promo copy
Yeah.
early as, yeah.
Super.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Real pleasure.
Thanks.
Thanks.